Hello and welcome to the Sunday Morning Cornerman. This week on the SMC, we discuss all the relevant fights of UFC Fight Night, Iaquinta versus Cerrone. I'll do all this, of course, with my co-host, as always, from Sherdog, Fan-Sided MMA, Cageside Press, and the Loudmouth MMA Network, Keith Shillan. Keith, how are you?
I'm good, brother. Another great night of fights. I hope you're doing good.
I'm doing fantastic. All right, Keith. The UFC came back to Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, or as it's known in the streets, the OOC. I don't know if that's true. I just made that up. Anyway, they were last in Ontario for UFC Fight Night, McDonald versus Thompson. Donald Cerrone was on that card as well. He defeated Patrick Cote by TKO in the third round. Keith, when this card was announced, although I thought the fight was good, it seemed like a door prize in comparison to the grand prize that was Conor versus Cowboy. Did the Conor rumors affect the perception of this card at all? What did you think about the card going in?
Well, you know me, man. When it comes to cards, I'm always positive. I thought there was a lot of good stuff to take out of this. But that said, I agree with you. I think that Conor's the big prize. I thought that was an angle they were missing at Cerrone and Cowboy. Not that they were going to put Conor on this card in Canada, but I did not think that Cerrone should have been on this card. But that said, before we get to the main event, it worked out for them. It worked out probably even better. So usually that doesn't happen for the UFC. So when it does, good for them.
That's true. All right, let's get to the fight card. We'll start with the main event, of course. Keith, coming into his fight on Saturday, he spoke of his dominance, that is Cowboy Cerrone, at 155 pounds before his dalliance with the welterweight division. He has had a lot of big wins at 155, and he seems interested in a run at the belt currently held, with apologies to Dustin Poirier, by Khabib Nurmagomedov. The most impressive performance ever against Nurmagomedov was Al Iaquinta, who took the undefeated Eagle the distance and had some good moments. On this evening, Khabib's former opponent took on who may be Khabib's future opponent, as Iaquinta and Cerrone met in the UFC Ottawa's main event. Keith, this was a hell of a fight. Iaquinta, again, had his moments, but Cerrone put on a show. What did you see in this fight? And is this the best Donald Cerrone we've ever seen?
Best ever? I don't know if it's the best ever, but it's definitely up there. And I would say it's the most surprising Donald Cerrone we've ever seen. I think even people who were predicting Donald Cerrone to win, I don't think they expected it to be this much pressure. I mean, I thought as the rounds went on, he just really took over. I thought the first two rounds were pretty split, pretty back and forth, but there was like a transition in the third round where he just put on the gas pedal, and Iaquinta could not deal with it, and that's what really surprised me. You think about the guy who's got all these wars, all the tread on his tires at his age. You would think, as a fight would go on, and a guy like Iaquinta, who has actually been kind of inactive a lot, who doesn't have the same amount of tread on his tires, that he would have been the one that would be getting stronger as the round goes on, not Cerrone. So that's what really surprised me. And yeah, I mean, this is when we 10 years from now, when Donald Cerrone is long retired, and we think back of great moments in Donald Cerrone's career, then this one's going to be right up there.
Yeah, for me, it was interesting because, the early rounds of a fight, I think it's sort of lazy to always call it a feeling out period, because sometimes fighters aren't feeling each other out. They're just not doing anything. They're being inactive. But I really thought in this one, it was really clunky in the first couple rounds. It seems like there were a lot of in-between. They didn't quite know. And sometimes you see guys have a good, even if they're not ready to fully engage, they're at least their timing seems okay. This fight was a mess in the first round, in my opinion. But then, yeah, like you said, Cerrone's left and his way of sort of varying where the kicks were landing. His left was sharp. I mean, at one point it dropped Iaquinta, but the fact that he was hitting the low kicks, hitting the middle kicks, body kicks, and then hitting the head kicks, and really had Iaquinta guessing as far as what's coming. I love Joe Shilling in his corner. I think Joe Shilling would have it that Donald Cerrone just went out there and kicked the shit out of everybody constantly. Because one thing that I did notice even late in the fight, in the fifth, was when Shilling said after the fourth, hey, go out there and just hit him with 4 big kicks. And I feel like that Cerrone knew that maybe Iaquinta would be waiting for that. And he gave him the kicks, but he didn't come out and just blast him with 4 right away. He kind of was still looking for the openings. I really thought that Cerrone fought a very disciplined fight. Do you feel like this was as game of an Iaquinta that fought Nurmagomedov, or is there some...
Well, I'm in the vast minority who I don't think Iaquinta had a good showing against Habib at all. I was there live, and there was a thrashing. I don't know where this. I don't know who started this narrative that Iaquinta had a good showing against Habib. Watch that fight. I mean, the total strikes in that fight was like something ridiculous, like 200.
I think it's just because he went the distance.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that was accomplishment. That was like Anthony Smith went the distance with John Jones. It wasn't a good fight.
Right. Yeah. That's
showing. Who was it? Vince St. Preux went the distance with John Jones. I mean, Khabib absolutely destroyed Iaquinta. I mean, guys got to stop with that saying. It was this one sided. I think one scorecard was 50-43. I mean, to me, that was one of the Habib's like best performances, and people, and I know that there's a whole bunch of things surrounding that, getting a fight on 24 hours notice. So I got to pump the brakes a little bit. Game, I mean, he got his ass whooped tonight, but toughness is, you could never question the toughness for Iaquinta. I mean, his face is bleeding all over the place. I mean, it looked like a horror movie. I mean, he was just drips of blood and one of these thrasher films, and he kept winging those big shots, and he landed a lot, actually. I mean, even in the fourth and fifth round, he landed the big overhand right, but I think there was a couple questions answered about Cerrone that we had. When Cerrone got knocked out by Darren Till and Jorge Masvidal, we started questioning his chin. We kind of do with every aging fighter when they start getting knocked out. But I don't think we can do that now because he not only did he get hit by the Iaquinta's fight, he just walked right through him. Like, he didn't even see it that affected by him. So I think that was one huge question that got answered tonight.
I'm going to ask you a question that gets asked all the time. I'm going to ask you in a weird way. Who would you have rather been, the Iaquinta the night that he fought Khabib, or the night that he fought Donald Cerrone?
Oof.
Which is a roundabout way of asking you who had a better performance against him. But who would you have rather been?
I don't know. I mean, Cerrone's looks worse because of the amount of blood, but the amount of damage he took in by Khabib. I guess probably I'd rather be Iaquinta. That's a tough question. I mean, I would probably go when he was in Brooklyn against Khabib, just because it's a higher competition. You went the distance for the champion on 24 hours notice. I mean, it was more of a moral victory. He came into this fight as a favorite, and I think most people were picking him to win. So even though he showed insane toughness, there's still a letdown factor there.
Right.
He was kind of playing with house money against the Khabib, which is, I think, another reason why people kind of give him credit, because no one even expected him to make it to the distance. So it was kind of like Rocky 1 kind of thing.
All right, in the post-fight, Donald Cerrone called for the title or Conor McGregor in July. I won't ask you which one you want more. Which do you think he's closer to?
I think it's Conor McGregor. I think that's the fight to make. I think it's the only fight to make for Cerrone. The lightweight division is just so clogged up. I mean, you got to give Dustin Poirier that fight. You still have Tony Ferguson, who's got this long winning streak, and then I think Cerrone's third in line. So, you make a matchup with Poirier, something happens, he gets injured, you reach out to Ferguson, he's still screwed up whatever's going on in the head there. Then Cerrone's game to take a fight and an hour's notice. What I'm really impressed. Think about this for a second. Go back to when Donald Cerrone got basically whitewashed by Leon Edwards, and that was like, let me see. Actually, I had it right here. It was June of 2018. Would you have thought that less than a year later, Donald Cerrone would be in this position he is right now? I mean, that's, to me, is insane. I mean, even on the 3-fight winning streak, the guys he beat before, I mean, they were Mike Perry sucks, and Alex Hernandez. And Hernandez, a lot of question about. I mean, even though Hernandez came in as a favorite and a lot of people picked him to win, he's a young guy, veteran, Cerrone's got all this veteran experience. But tonight, there's no question about it. Cerrone's good. He's still good. I mean, he just dominated a really good fighter who was also coming off probably his best performance in his career when he beat Kevin Lee the second time. So, what a situation for Donald Cerrone when we kind of
I think the interesting thing is that, and then with the birth of his son, like he sort of transitioned into a new type of marketability. I mean, I thought that he had peaked as far as marketability. Like he had every redneck,
Sure.
he had the Budweiser. Like I'm like, this guy's and now all of a sudden he's like super dad. And he's got that behind him. So I think it's just, it's interesting in the way that he's listen, the kid's got it. I mean, whatever the it factor is, he's got it. They can find a million ways to market him. But I think that now moving forward, like you said, after the Leon Edwards fight, you would not have thought that he would have come back certainly in the way that he has. He's got a lot of opportunities. I loved matching these guys up, even though I wanted the Conor fight, because it just adds another layer to 55. Now Khabib and Cerrone, anytime they can get guys with, like opponents, they're always going to do it. So it just gives it another layer.
Yeah, and it also gives another money fight with Brock Lesnar not coming back, with Ronda Rousey obviously out. The amount of cash cows are really low right now with Nate Diaz seeming no interest in fighting unless it's Conor or Khabib. There's not many guys who really draw pay-per-view numbers. Well, getting Conor back obviously draws, but matching him against the right opponent and I mean, you put Conor against Iaquinta, it's going to sell. You put Conor against Edson Barboza, it's going to sell. But they're not the right opponent. Donald Cerrone is that right opponent. Because if an Iaquinta or Barboza or Gregor Gillespie, whoever beats Conor, you probably don't have a star. Where like Nate was the perfect opponent.
Right.
Where he had the personality. Cerrone is the perfect, but he's already a star, but he could catapult even higher. Like he's nearing the end of his career, but he could have this late Michael Bisping get a title fight, get a belt. I still think it's a long shot, but say it happened and ride off in the sunset like a cowboy does. and then I could see him like hosting like an action television show on like Paramount or some
right.
MTV.
Definitely has a post-career. He's got a lot of opportunities post-career. Let me ask a question. What do you think does more money? And now with the whole way the ESPN deal is, this is a curious question. I mean, obviously they still want to make money, so the pay-per-view buys matter to them, even if we don't get to see the numbers. But what pay-per-view do you think does more money? Dustin Poirier, Khabib Nurmagomedov, or Donald Cerrone, Khabib Nurmagomedov?
I think Cerrone does.
Right. So then does that lead them maybe down that path?
No, I mean, to me, he has got a strong argument, but I mean, the amount of extra pay-per-views Donald Cerrone will bring in, I don't think it's worth it. Like, what he's bringing in, an extra 200,000. Like, it's not like going from having 500,000 pay-per-view buys to over 1 million, where it would be worth it. I don't think Cerrone, and I don't even know if Cerrone even brings it that much, but because you have a cash cow in Khabib, he's going to bring him views in. You know what I mean?
You think Khabib can carry pay-per-views now?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
You think Conor gave him that Midas touch, huh?
Well, he was also like a big, huge star in Russia already.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you get the undefeated record. You get that Ivan Drago feel to him.
Right.
I think he's greater than Mike. And then he beat up Conor, and then as much as people talk and say it was terrible for him to jump out of the cage, no, it wasn't. It's great for the UFC because people remember that even more.
True. I'll just say this and we'll move on to the co-main event. I think there's a chance that there's a lot of money in Conor, Poirier, Khabib, Cerrone. The trick is, how do you match up Conor, Poirier? If Conor wins, how do you then not? Like, how do you get both those two fights to come off? Those two fights do more money than any other incarnation except for maybe Conor and Khabib. But I like that in a way.
I think the combo of Conor versus Cerrone with Khabib and Poirier would do more pay-per-view buys than Conor, Poirier, Khabib, Cerrone.
Yeah, you might be right. That's true.
We've already seen Conor, as much as even though it happened so long ago, it was such a different Dustin Poirier. We have seen that fight, so it doesn't get us as excited.
That's true.
That's why, like, when Max Holloway was pushing for the Conor fight, it's a totally different Max Holloway than when Conor fought him. I was actually there in Boston. It was a fight that no one even was caring about. I mean, it was a prelim fight.
Right.
But it still is not as attractive as in someone who hasn't fought yet.
That's true. All right, Keith, Elias Theodorou may be one of the only fighters whose outside of the cage activities may overshadow his in the cage activities. He's a top 15 fighter, and he signed up for a tough night in his home country against Derek Brunson. Brunson, who has been in some high-profile fights in the last 2 years with Silva, Machida, Jacare, and Stylebender, maybe got a break with Theodoro, but his style made this an interesting fight. Theodoro seemed to want to tire Brunson and use a herky-jerky style to land shots. I thought Theodoro was pretty effective in that. Obviously, Brunson got the win. Do you see any path towards Theodoro getting the decision here? Or, I mean, I know Brunson's wrestling was there, but I did see some effectiveness from Theodoro.
No, I think all 3 rounds, even with the slam that Brunson got that huge slam, I thought all 3 rounds were close. I thought all three rounds. I actually thought the best round for Brunson was probably the first round because Theodoro kind of had his moments late in that round, but I felt like Brunson kind of had enough, in the bag at that point. I did give it Brunson. I gave him the first and the third, but it wouldn't have been a robbery if Theodoro took the decision. That said, I mean, it was an ugly fight. It was, but this is exactly how you. I mean, if you've seen these guys fight before, you got to know that this was going to be an ugly fight,
right?
And what I kept thinking about it when we were watching this fight was like, this is the contrast of uglies because Derek Brunson fights ugly and he usually loses because of that. And Elias Theodoro fights ugly and usually wins because of that. It's like the difference between being ineffective with your ugly style and being effective with your ugly style. But when Brunson is able to use his wrestling, he finds ways to win. I mean, Derek Brunson, this is kind of going back, and this is, like we're talking about a different Yoel Romero, but he fought Yoel Romero and he was winning, out wrestling a silver medalist, a world champion in wrestling. So it's something when he doesn't charge, when he doesn't go wailing, he's still ugly. He still makes a lot of mistakes. But when he uses his wrestling, like Andrew Sanchez lower on the card, he's a better fighter.
All right, let's talk about Brunson. I mean, he's like we just said, fought a bunch of studs. He said in the cage after the fight, this is sort of like a new Derek Brunson or a transition Derek Brunson or whatever, however you want to look at it. Ranked number 9 coming in. This division, I think, is going through a bit of a transition. There's some guys that people are either calling for to leave the division or want to leave the division. Luke Rockhold, Yoel Romero. I've heard a lot of people say they want Weidman to maybe go to 205. Obviously, Jack Hermanson had a great performance. Jacare just lost. Adesanya and Whitaker are going to hook it up at some point. Gastelum looked good in the Adesanya fight, so who does he get? You and I have talked about maybe he gets Hermanson. What do you do if you're Brunson? Do you start like maybe making moves on Paulo Costa? Like what's next for you in this division? I mean, everything else is behind you.
To me, you finally got to win. You've kind of had every single time you've faced a top 10-ish, top 7, 8-ish opponent, Jacare, Whitaker, these guys, Adesanya. You not only lose, but you lose bad. You fail bad. Even in the Whitaker fight where he had Whitaker rocked, he still found a way to like run into like right hands from Whitaker and get knocked out. So I think he needs to rack up a couple more of these wins. The next tier down, or Brad Tavares's.
I was just going to call Brad Tavares' name. Yeah, you think he shouldn't try and get himself into the top 5, just sort of like you said, settle here and establish yourself here and sort of let the division figure itself out?
Yeah, I mean, he's 35, so I'm sure he's going to be rushed. But I feel like we know where Derek Brunson is. I don't think he's ever going to be a title challenger. And it's funny because I'm not a Derek Brunson hater. I mean, you asked some of the guys when I was writing for the Takeover. We made bold predictions in 2018, and I always like to say, "Hey, this is bold," which means when you say you make a bold prediction, it's supposed to really mean this is not going to happen. But I predicted him to be our fight of the year at the end of the year. So I'm all in on Derek Brunson. That I've since jumped off the Derek Brunson train. But maybe Jared Cannonier if he beats Anderson Silva, though I think at that point if Cannonier beats Silva, he probably passes Brunson and probably deserves a better fight. Maybe David Branch. I'm just looking at guys. Uriah Hall, like that range of guys. That's who I think he should fight. I definitely don't think, unless you have a guy coming off a loss that you kind of think, hey, he can fight Derek Brunson and get a win, so you kind of use him to rebound, like for Chris Weidman or something like that. But I don't believe in Derek Brunson anymore. So congrats on winning this fight. I don't think it showed anything to show improvement. That said, I think it is a good thing that he went to Hard Knocks 365. He was with Jackson with John for a while, left them, was right. He opened up his own gym and where's he from? Like South Carolina or someplace like that, and was running his own gym. That's never a good idea to hold your own camps, be in charge of your own camps. That makes no sense. So I'm glad that he's at least going to hold his camps with an established team.
All right, so let's talk about Khalil Roundtree for a second because I want to compare the two. If I was going to tell you that I had two options for Derek Brunson and for him to choose one or the other, tell me which one you prefer. Him going to 205 or because he's got the same dimensions as Khalil Roundtree. That's why I brought him up. They're both 6'1". They got about similar frames. Roundtree might be a little thicker. 205 or doing like what Khalil Roundtree did and maybe taking the next 6 to 8 months and dedicating yourself to a certain discipline and coming out in like how Roundtree got so deep in the Muay Thai game.
Yeah.
Which one would you prefer?
Well, in one fairness, when it comes to light heavyweight guys, to jump to heavyweight, it's such a drastic change because while you moving up one weight class is the span of heavyweight. I mean, imagine if you're Roundtree and you're undersized and you get put up against Juan Adams, who Fight Night he's weighing 285 pounds. Right. So that's like the one division it's hard to compare because that's the only division where the weight class is a span of 65 pounds. But to me, I just think he should just take fights that he thinks he can win. And I don't think he'll be a threat at light heavyweight too. But I don't know. Maybe he drains himself with a weight cut. Maybe a trial fight at light heavyweight would work. Like I'm okay with him moving up. I have no interest in Brunson anymore. So it's like, if he wants to move to light heavyweight, yeah, go ahead, man. Like guys.
No, I think why I like what you said about taking fights you think you can win. I like that he changed camps and then maybe take a couple of camps to just say, okay, I'm not so consumed with the guy I'm fighting. And you could have made this case for your last. You fight Anderson Silva, you fight Stylebender. I mean, you get so consumed with the guy you're fighting that you may not be as at home with your techniques and your discipline and all that sort of stuff. So maybe taking it to, and this is not to, please don't let this be a knock on Brad Tavares or David Branch or any of those guys. Yeah. I'm just saying that if there's fights he feels a little more confident in, then maybe he could spend a little more time honing his craft over 365 and seeing what that leads to.
See, if he can get 1 or 2 more wins against Uriah Halls, Brad Tavares, he can get those wins and he's kind of on a win streak. I think then he has enough name value that you can build someone else off him like you did with Adesanya.
Right.
Like I think that's the ceiling same with Brad Tavares, same with Uriah Hall, like to kind of all in that situation where you can kind of build other guys off of their name. I think that's the best thing Brunson's going to give you.
Right. All right, let's move on. Coming into Saturday night, Cub Swanson was on a 3-fight losing skid. In fairness to Swanson, the fights he lost were to a former title contender, a future Hall of Famer, and Topology's number 4 featherweight in the world. On this night, he drew Shane Burgos, who has only stood next to one man at the end of the fight who got his hand raised. The 11-1 slick New York fighter kept the head and hands moving on this night and may have sent Swanson to Cokerville with his 4th straight loss. Keith, first, is Cub Swanson on the most impressive losing streak ever? And more importantly, what do we have in Burgos and how much does Swanson have left?
I think Swanson has a lot more left than we think. I mean, you look at it, he's lost 4 fights in a row. But when you dig deep and you see he lost 2, I mean, he's lost to studs. I mean, I think Shane Burgos – I think this tells me more about Shane Burgos than it does about Cub Swanson. But, I mean, looking at who Cub Swanson has fought and lost to – I mean, it's been Brian Ortega, stud, Frankie Edgar, stud, Renato Moicano, stud, and now Shane Burgos. So, yeah, I like how you classified that as, like, the most impressive 4-fight losing streak. And if you remember, he was more competitive in that Frankie Edgar fight than he was the first time. He was doing okay in the Ortega fight before he got submitted. Moicano ran right through him, but maybe that happens. And I mean, Burgos won, but this fight was competitive. So but I think Swanson is also kind of falling into that what we just talked about, Derek Brunson. where he's kind of the best thing you can use for him is put him in a fun action fight like you do with like a Korean Zombie, some crazy fight like that. Or you can put him in where you want to build up guys rising, guys like Calvin Kattar and guys like that. Like Shane Burgos is a perfect example. So I think that's kind of where you can use them and kind of, you got these prospects. But I think I still think he's a step up above Derek Brunson level. Like I still think Swanson is still a more quality opponent than Derek Brunson is. That said, man, what a performance with Shane Burgos.
Let's talk technique, and we do this kind of not intentionally like this, where I just come right out and say it. But listen, typically I hate when fighters put their hands down.
That's the first thing I was going to say.
But I will say this: there is a couple advantages to it. It's difficult to tell where the punches are coming from, and he landed some good uppercuts based on that. And if you're gonna do it, move your head like Shane Burgos does.
That's
Switch
right.
stances. Don't keep that head on that straight line. And I think that if you're gonna do it now. I'll say that, and I'll let you expand upon that. But the next thing I want to tell you is, or ask you is, do you think a fighter like Shane Burgos a little bit sells, because you said yourself, close fight, split decision. Does a guy like Shane Burgos sell the victory to the judges in the sense that he looks so goddamn slick in there, Keith, that it doesn't look like he takes a lot of punishment. He looks like he's always kind of moving. He's always seems like he's in command, even when he's not.
Yeah.
Talk about all that.
Yeah, no, that's really good. It's really good. I think that command, I like to say composure. He's so composed. I mean, even against a guy like Swanson, that can bite you in the ass the other way, where you're so composed and like remember when he fought Charles Rosa? It was a really close fight. It's like, why is he having a close fight with Charles? I mean, he ended up putting on him and getting him out in like the third round. But it's like, why is a really good prospect like Shane Burgos struggling with Charles Rosa? Because he's so composed that I believe he believes in so much of what he's doing, and I think he believes he's going to have that moment where he just takes over. And then it started getting deep in the fight, and he hadn't had that moment yet. And he didn't ramp up his his aggression, or he didn't ramp up his what's the word I'm thinking of? I can't think of the word, but like he's like, hey, I'm gonna lose. I need this. I better like make something happen. And the hands thing, urgency. Yes, that's the word. Sorry, man. It's late here. Urgency. Yeah, sometimes he needs a little urgent. That said, there's so many things he does that just floors me. We've talked about this in the past, and I mean, this is what always gets me in strikers. The best strikers have great vision, and that's what Shane Burgos has. He sees things coming. You know who he reminds me a lot of, without the darting back and forth footwork, but the hands down and the vision, and always constantly sliding off the center line, having the punch just go by him and leave himself in range. He reminds me a lot of Dominic Cruz.
Yeah.
Without the darting around. Get that?
Footwork, yeah.
But the hands down, throwing from weird angles, and seeing punches. Adesanya is great at, you get guys who, when they move from right punch, and they move way back and then leave themselves in range. Burgos doesn't do that. Adesanya never did that. Cruz didn't do that. Anderson Silva was a master of it, of just keeping yourself in the range, away from the punch. And then, I mean, it was tight. And his jab, man, his jab is good, and you don't see that enough. And when he was jabbing the tits off of freaking Cub Swanson. I mean, and the composure, what we talk about, I think it can be really good to not, when your opponent's having moments, to not get out of your game, which I think, go back to Iaquinta, I think Iaquinta got his game. When Cerrone was having his moments, he just started relying on just one punch. But then it can go the other way, where you're so composed. There's something Jorge Masvidal used to do. Jorge Masvidal was feeling good, like, he's not hurting me, and then he'd give fights away.
Yeah.
Lorenz Lart, his fight against Lorenz Arkin was one where he didn't have the urgency. So I hope that doesn't happen to him. But Shane Burgos has arrived. That's a guy I've been really big on for a while. And I mean, I think he's already right in the picture. I mean,
I was going to ask. So he came into the fight unranked. Swanson was ranked 10th. So the bottom five of the at 135 is Calvin Kattar, Elkins, Chan Sung Jung, Yair Rodriguez, Ricardo Lamas, Cub Swanson. Talk me out of the fight between Shane Burgos and Yair Rodriguez.
I'm not gonna. Like, to me, how could you? Their styles are so different because, Yair Rodriguez is so wild, but in a good sense. He makes a lot of mistakes. Good. While Burgos is so technical with just his sliding. I mean, he's technical wizard. But that's a fight I would love. A fight that I probably don't want to make yet because I hate knocking off prospects. But if it happened, I mean, how can you not love it? But imagine Shane Burgos and Zabit, Magomed Sharapov. Imagine that fight.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
And
both those guys are not booked. Yari's not booked. Zabit's not booked.
I mean, I wouldn't even mind even like a Josh Emmett. I mean, I know that's might be even a step down from Cub Swanson or like right in that range, but with Holloway leaving the division for a second, coming back, there's a couple of shuffling of going on. So that's kind of the same situation we had with lightweight. There's a lot of log jam. I mean, I wouldn't mind. I would Frankie Edgar style with he does that like kind of shuffling out, darting in range. I would love to see. Shane Burgos is so fun in that division. There's so many good guys.
Yeah, there's a lot there for him.
Yeah, and you know what though? He hasn't been tested in his wrestling. So Josh Emmett could test him in that. Obviously, Frankie Edgar could. Mirsad Bektik. I mean, there's some good wrestling.
I wouldn't mind him and Emmett. The Edgar thing. I don't want this kid in there with anybody who can just like pro his way to a fight or to a win. I don't want anybody that's just been around long enough that they can just find the way to get past him. I want somebody that's kind of going to make – I think Emmett might make – like I think Frankie Edgar could figure out his way to get past.
Sure. That's a true mention, yeah.
I'd rather him go against someone that, they're kind of like both going to make some mistakes and both going to do – so we can really see what's going down.
Yeah.
All right,
how old is he, Shane Burgos?
I want to say I thought 29, but let me check.
Okay, so he's entering – he's 28. He's 28. He's entering – he just turned 28. So he's kind of on that like early stage of his prime. So that's the thing about it. He's just entering his prime. Not a lot of damage other than that one fight against Calvin Kattar. That's another fight I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind seeing. I mean, I don't think that's the fight to make next, but that's another fight I would love to see Calvin Kattar and Burgos rematch one day.
I'd love to see this kid do, and he's fighting. He's out of Tiger Schulman's, and so I mean, his whole world's in New York. I would really like to see him just link up with the New York, New Jersey guys. Leave him alone for a little bit because he's far enough behind him that he does it. Like Marlon Moraes' career can be what it's going to be. Yeah. Frankie Edgar's career can be what it's going to be. Aljamain Sterling's can be what it's going to be. So just fight guys that aren't in the tri-state area.
Yeah.
And train with them.
Yeah.
And that way, I just think it's a much better path for him than trying to go through those guys.
You know what? There is a strong connection between those schools. So they actually might train with each other a little bit. So the Frankie Edgar one might be already out. Like they might have a lot of training, but I don't know. To me, we talked about matchups, and I felt like every single one would sign me up.
Keith, you're going to be so impressed with this transition, and I set it up. Beautifully. Keith,
okay, perfect.
New York and New Jersey, the Renzo Gracie, Matt Serra, Ray Longo, Mark Henry combined contingent. There are some of the best international fighters in all the fight game.
Yeah.
Rob Dvalishvili is certainly no exception. He looks like a Russian Frankie Edgar and certainly holds the Russian standard of ground game. Dvalishvili, who was 2-2 in his last 4, looked amazing tonight against Brad Katona, completely shut him down. So, Keith, is Brad Katona just out of his depth here, or has Merab vastly improved since the guy that we know lost a split decision to Frankie Saenz, got choked out by Ricky Simone? Is this kid evolving? Did Katona have an off night? Who is this guy? Tell me who you think he is.
I think the question is actually – I don't think that Brad Katona has been miscategorized. I think Merab Dvalishvili – I'm sorry. I'm terrible with these names. But
Dvalishvili.
Yeah. I think he's the guy. You could make an argument he could be 4-0 in the UFC. He beat Frankie Saenz. That was a robbery. And then he follows that up with Ricky Simone. And I don't know if you remember that fight. That was a fight where he won, and Ricky Simone is good. I mean, we've kind of established that he's a contender now. He's like one of the hot prospects in that division, and Merab beat him. I mean, he was beating him every second, and then it was that weird thing where he got caught in the guillotine choke at the end, and he was kicking his legs, and then they said he passed out afterwards, or maybe he passed out during, but he was like awake when the bell rang, and then they gave Simone the win. It was like I still don't know if we ever got a really good explanation on that. So you give him if you give him a terrible you give him the fight that he should have won against Frankie Saenz and then don't don't have that weird situation with Cerrone. This got to be 4-0. He'd be knocking on the top 15 rankings, or if not already in the top 15. So I mean, I don't know what's not to like him. I thought he had good. I thought he won the striking today. His wrestling is on point. He's got great cardio. And like you said, he's with a good team. So, yeah, I like this guy. I think he's really good.
And this is another guy. And again, earlier, if we kind of blurred the lines when we were talking about Burgos, Burgos fights at 45. Obviously, Dvalishvili fights at 35. So, Frankie Edgar kind of goes in between weights. Cub Swanson's done the same as well at times. But Marlon Moraes is at 35. There's all these guys in those two weights. So I think this is another guy that he would benefit from training with. This is another – I think that New York really has a lot of young fighters that are all sort of right there. I always can tell this is how I know if a guy's legit, who comes to the ring with him. And when I saw Dvalishvili walking out with Longo and Sarah, I was like, and Sterling, I was like, yeah. All right.
And Iaquinta might have been in his corner if he wasn't in the main event.
Right. So we knew you had something in this kid. They're not going to Matt Serra be shooting, looking for a fighter somewhere if this kid wasn't, the goods.
Yeah, so, and if we want to talk about guys who should leave camp, I think we should be talking about Katona. Katona should leave SBG Ireland. I mean, it's not a good camp. It has a reputation because of Connor. Connor, I mean, who else is a good fighter in SBG Ireland? Nobody other than Connor. And Connor's never there. I mean,
right.
Like, he's this guy flying over to Ireland to train with his team. And, I know he did it when Connor was on the top of the world then, but you're from Canada. Go train with TriStar or come to America and train with Sarah Longo or train with, jump with Fortis MMA, who I'm always pumping.
Well, I think you have to be – if you're Brad Katoni, you have to be realistic about what is it you expect to get out of SBG Ireland. If you really have that much faith in John Kavanagh, okay. Yeah. But even he's kind of like,
But how much faith did he have in you that he didn't come fly over to – I don't want to start any trouble, but he didn't come to Ottawa for this fight. Why not?
Exactly. Right.
So
there's a lot of weird stuff going on there, and you can't expect, and all props to Brad Katona. You have to understand that if you're going to SBG Ireland in the hopes that somehow you're going to be a part of what Connor's doing, like, listen, man, Connor's got more important shit to do than hang out and get you ready for your camp.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to Brad Katona, but if that's the reason why you're there, it's time to go.
Yeah, and I'll finish Jack Kavanaugh. I mean, we don't know why he didn't travel. It could be something family related. It could be something as simple as there was someone he went to the Bellator show instead because the Bellator was on and there was a guy. Who knows? But I just don't think if Connor was fighting, Kavanaugh would have stayed home.
Right. All right, let's move on. Walt Harris's career has been, let's be honest, mediocre. He's 5-6 in the UFC, and every time he ran into a stud, he lost the fight. Yeah. That's good enough to be in the top 10 in this heavyweight division. On this night, he drew the polar bear, Sergey Spivak. Well, Keith, the polar bear found an avalanche on this night, and he got smothered. Harris threw bombs that took this kid out quick. Listen, Keith, let's talk about the polar bear in the room.
Yeah.
Was Spivak a gift to Harris to keep him relevant in the heavyweight division, or did the kid just have a bad night?
Yeah, I don't remember who said this, and I apologize for not giving them credit, but someone put on Twitter, well, I think we just found Greg Hardy's next opponent.
Oh, yes. I want to say it was Jed Goodman.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't remember who did, but whoever did, congrats. That was my favorite tweet of the night, and a good call. Walt Harris has had good moments. He's one of these guys where I think he kind of got rushed. He was this basketball. I mean, they say every time NCAA basketball player who kind of had just this raw ability, kind of got rushed too soon. But he's done a lot better. I mean, the Mark Garbett disqualification, that's a fight he was going to win. There was a break in action from a cup check. He didn't realize it was a break. He threw a high kick, and Garbett couldn't compare. He took the Fabricio Verdum fight on like 2 hours notice. I remember that. Like, you fight a top 5 heavyweight of all time, former world champion, because Derek Lewis hurt his back during warming ups or whatever it was. As far as this fight, I don't think you can get anything out of it. This fight happened because of Alexander Volkov. Whatever happened with him? No. Volkov something happened with him, and then they took Oleinik to fight Overeem.
Oh, that's right.
They left Harris without an opponent. He was originally supposed to fight on the Russia card. They just pushed him back to this Canada card, which is kind of weird because they get I think Spivak was from Russia, so I don't get why they matched him with a Russian. I don't know why they took him off a Russian card to fight the Russian where he's some kind of Eastern European in Canada. Right. That didn't make sense to me. But he did. This is what happened when you have a guy who's not UFC level fighting a UFC level fighter. This is what should happen. So, I mean, I don't know what else to take from it.
There's not much to take from it, but other than, do you think that does this give? I hate to ask you a question that you've kind of already answered, but with Harris having his place in the heavyweight division, what's next for the guy? You know what I mean?
like Harris. I like Harris. I see potential, man. He's got quick hands. Obviously, you're an NCAA level basketball, D1 basketball. You obviously have athleticism. He's got good size. He moves quick. He says he has the fastest hands in the division. I don't know if that's true, but he's in the conversation. I mean, he's quick. He's a good athlete. He keeps getting better. Do I think he'll ever win a title? No, but I mean, the crazy thing is you can be competitive in the heavyweight division. You got guys like Arlovsky and Overeem and Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt's like 45 years old and still competitive.
Yeah.
So he could have a still long run in this division even. So there's guys ranked ahead of him that I think Walt Harris would beat.
So in the post-fight, he called up Justin Willis.
That's a fight I think he'll win.
Yeah. I mean, do you like that fight?
I think that's a perfect matchup. He called out Willis, excuse me, and Alexei Oleinik, the one he was supposed to fight.
Right.
And I like the matchup with Willis more. Willis wants to trash talk. I love the trash talk. People who don't hate, I don't get people who don't like. I mean, how can you not? I like the trash talk. Willis wants to trash talk. Walt Harris won't step back, and it's a fun. Both guys have quick hands. I love that matchup, and I think that's like right call out. Like we talked about this past. You call out the right call out. If you don't say, "Oh, I just beat Spivak," give me
JDS.
JDS, yeah. So.
Yeah, I think some guys are trying to really make up some real estate in their call-outs, but I think it's smarter to pick the right next fight, the one that you can set up, the one that's actually doable. My thought would be, kind of that emoji with the glasses where they're thinking you want Mick Maynard and Sean Shelley to be like, Willis, or them to say, we were thinking about that anyway. You want it to kind of be in line with the way they want to go anyway.
And also, they're paying for TV time. Don't waste their TV time with something that's not going to happen.
Right, exactly. All right, let's move on to the last fight of the main card, or the first fight of the main card, depending on how you look at it. Ultimate Fighter 23 winner Andrew Sanchez has had an up-and-down career since July of 2016 when he defeated Khalil Roundtree to take that title. 2-2 in his last 4. He welcomed former training partner Marc-Andre Barriault to the Octagon in Barriault's debut with the promotion. Sanchez had the advantage with the wrestling, but he paid a huge price when he came inside, as Barriault always seemed to find a home for his uppercut on Sanchez's chin. Keith, I don't want to say I'm arguing with the decision necessarily, but it seemed like a close fight. And then afterwards, to me at least, it seemed like – and then afterwards Sanchez was – and we'll get to this in Not For Nothing – Sanchez was kind of pleading his case to the crowd, which, crowds are crowds. Did you see it as a close fight? Am I way off? What did you see?
Well, it was close, but I thought it was the right decision. I thought he won the first and third.
That makes sense.
A lot of people don't like wrestling, but wrestling's part of the game. Like he said himself, you know what it's like? No one wants to see wrestling, but when it's 3rd-and-1, it'd be like watching NFL and the team hands off and everyone's screaming, you should be throwing. Like, no, if it's going to get you the win, hand off. Like, we're like the only sport that's like, we tell them, hey, don't do what's going to help you win. If you have a center who dominates down low, we'll throw it to him down low and let him score.
Since we're on this subject, let me ask you a question I've been wondering for a while. I want to get your perspective on it. How long does a takedown need to be held for you to feel like it should effectively gain a point? Is it just getting it? Should you have to control the guy for a minute or 30 seconds? Or how long do you think it takes?
Well, the problem is there's no set scoring system where we go
right. Well, that's what I'm asking. What do you think it should be?
I don't know, because we don't count. Well, we don't count in our head. I don't know how you score, but I don't count in my head hey, I scored that guy 30 points, that guy 27 points. I don't do that. I watch the round and
The winner gets 10, the loser gets 9, unless it was a dominant round, 10-8.
Who would I rather be that round kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely I know where you're going with this. I definitely think that wrestling can get overscored. I mean, I think we've seen that. I thought the what's the girl fight a couple weeks ago? Antonina Shevchenko and Roxanne Modafferi was a fight where Roxanne, I thought Shevchenko did a lot more damage on the feet. I thought she got the better shots, but Modafferi had a lot of wrestling, but there was like nothing happening. Like she wrestled and hold him down. But when like in the third round, where mostly all it was wrestling, you have to give that round to Sanchez. Even though it's not the most entertaining, you want to see him banging out. You want to see damage. You want to see a big slam, and if there's going to be wrestling and submission attempts, that's not what happened. But he controlled pretty much the entire round with his wrestling. You can't ignore that.
That's true.
But this fight, I felt like this fight basically sums up Andrew Sanchez. This is like every one of his fights. He has moments where he's winning, using his wrestling, using boxing. We say, oh, he's going to improve boxing, and then he gets smashed on his feet and gets hurt, and he's sucking for win. And either in the last round he gets knocked out, or he digs deep with his wrestling and wins. But it's pretty much like, when Andrew Sanchez wrestles, when he fights, he's going to get some takedowns, and he's going to get hurt on the feet. Like every single.
You know what's funny? He seems like, and this may be an odd way to phrase it, but I've used this about other fighters before. He seems like a self-hating wrestler, in the sense that he like doesn't want to. He desperately wants to be a striker, but he's a really good wrestler. And it's like, dude, every time you stand up, it's trouble. Just
Or he's this guy who's like, I will wrestle to get me the win, but I'm going to set these amount of time where I'm going to strike.
Yeah,
like, I will give you. Okay, we're having a timeout. I can't like the whole second round. He's like, hey, I get rocked and almost knocked out multiple times instead of wrestling. But one issue I think also happens why he doesn't wrestle enough is he's in this weird conundrum where he needs wrestling to win, but he also needs to conserve his terrible gas tank to win. But when he wrestles, he drains his own gas tank. So he's in whatever he does at the end of the fight, it's going to look like
it's a time bomb.
He just barely won that one.
He's a time bomb. He's in there. He's like, what do I do here? I gotta diffuse this thing, but I don't have the necessary resources or time. Yeah. It's like every time he clips a wire, the clock goes faster.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to so what'd you think about the main card as a whole? Pretty good.
I mean, the main event was fantastic. Swanson and Burgos. So I think those two fights alone saved it. I thought Katona and Marabashvili, how we say his name, was entertaining. Harris had a nice knockout. What I didn't like some of the order. Like I don't think Sanchez and Baralt should have been on the main card. Neither guys are close to contention. Not really relevant. It got put on the main card because the guy was from Ottawa. He's right from that area. That's why. But you still gotta. To me, that makes no sense. Put him up first. Get the arena packed out for the first fight instead of having him slowly rolling in. Hey, we know the guy we're cheering for is up first to have the whole arena packed out. But you got a fighter like Macy Shashin buried on the prelims, and you got this fight that makes no sense. Like ahead of it, come on.
All right. Speaking of Macy Chiasson, she defeated Sarah Moras by TKO via strikes. The first round, she got taken down quick and held down. I thought it was bad news for her. What did you see?
Yeah, no. Chiasson is a good girl that I'm just like in love with, and from a talent sense, she's got it all. She's huge for the weight class. She's long. She seems very strong. She has a killer instinct. When she sees blood, she finishes people. I mean, she did it on the Ultimate Fighter show. She's done it so far on a short brief run in the UFC. And she's young and I think she's got 5 professional fights, so she's still learning. And she's with Fortis MMA, which, I mean, I know I'm sounding like a broken record. I say it every week. She's in the perfect place, the perfect coaching staff. I mean, you heard the coach staff during this fight. That said, I think now you see a little bit of wrinkle. And I think that wrinkle is not so much her wrestling takedown defense, because I think it was just she got surprised by the shot. But if she gets taken down, that she's willing to play this BJJ off your back game instead of working to scramble. And it's nothing we say a week. I hate that. You're not going to win in this level by playing off your back BJJ game. And she kind of did that for a big portion of the first round. So that kind of concerns me a little bit. So she still beat the brakes off of Sarah Moraes.
Right. So two other notes that I had from the fight. One, it seemed like, you listen to a fighter talk and they sound like they're just regurgitating what their coach tells them. And then you listen to another fighter talk and you're like, okay, this person is taking what their coach gives them, processing it and coming up with their own thoughts. She's a bright girl. I mean, you could tell that just in the post-fight. Yeah. So I think that benefits her, right? And I will say this, maybe I fell a little bit into the trap that she just looks so crazy that when she was speaking that well, I was like, holy shit, this is what I expected. But she seems like she's kind of got her shit together. My other question is, she's currently ranked, she came in 14th. Does the ranking scare you a little bit because she's so young in the game that they're gonna like move her along faster than she needs to be?
Well, I think she's gonna do. I think we're looking at a future title challenger.
Okay.
And possibly even winning the title. I wouldn't pick her over Amanda Nunes, right? But if she did eventually one day, years from now, win the title, I would not be surprised. But I do think she's going to challenge for the title one day. That said, she probably will get one of those early career losses. I mean, it happened to Valentina Shevchenko. Robert Whittaker had some couple of terrible losses in his career. Other than John Jones, it happened to everybody. you know. So I think that'll probably happen to her. But I mean, if you look at the rankings, I mean, I would probably favor her over like 10 people ranked ahead of her.
That's my question, though. So then what do you do?
I'm that high on her. Like, I think,
so I'm looking at the rankings.
What I hope she gets is Tony Ferguson treatment and not Israel Adesanya. Like, I hope she doesn't go.
All right. That's 15, the best way to. Okay.
15, 8, 2 champion. I would like to see her fight 15, 12, 10, 7, 3, 1 champion. Like, I would like a longer road for her. So when she
just for those paying attention, if based on what Keith said, that would be it'd be just how they're ranked now. It'd be Betch Correia, Irene Aldana, Yana Kunitskaya, and then Caitlin Vera. If they all stayed the same, but I'm just saying, I like that jump. Sure. I'm with you. I like that progression.
Now, how do you feel? No, I'm all in on it. I'm all in. I've been all in since the Ultimate Fighter show. Are you with me? You think she's special, or you think she's?
I do. I think she has a couple of things going for her. I think, like you said, she has a good. I look at the outside things, right? Not just what I'm trying to be sold on. So I like her size. Mm-hmm. She has unique size for the division. I like her camp. I like her brains. Those are things that she may have that others don't. Everybody else can have this ability and be taught certain things and all that. I do think she has special skills, but I like those intangibles in terms of making a run at the belt. And I think that if she goes through that process like you're talking about, then she'll pick up whatever she doesn't have along the way.
So we'll breeze through the rest of the prelims, but I feel like this is like this is the person that stands out to me from the prelims.
Okay.
So let's have a little fun for a second. So you mentioned that she's 14th right now.
Right.
Let's just see to where we finally disagree. Right now, does she win or lose? Number 13, Lena Lansbury.
Win.
I agree. 12, Betch Correia.
Win.
I agree. 11, Tanya Evinger.
That's a tricky one.
That's a tricky one. Especially because of the rest of them. So let's put Tanya Evinger with a pin. I could see her winning that fight, but that's one that kind of worries me. Irene Aldana, number 10. Win, I agree. Sarah McMahon, number 9.
I don't like her against McMahon's wrestling.
Yeah, I agree with that. But McMahon folds late in the fight, so I could see her winning that fight. But that's one I'd be like, okay. Number 8, Marion Reneau.
I would take her in that fight.
I do too. Number 7, Yana Kunitskaya.
I take her in that one.
I do too. Like number 6, Aspen Ladd. Now
that's actually a good one because I think Aspen Ladd's got a lot of.
Ladd's the one that I might because of her wrestling and her top game.
I think that's where she starts to level out.
Right now. But you asked me the same question a year, and I'm big on Ladd. I like Ladd as a prospect. You asked me the same question a year from now, maybe a year and a half. I think I'm taking GSon to win.
I'll tell you this. I would if she was a stock, and you telling me that everybody's ranked the same a year from now, but everybody's games have evolved. I would say that she makes the biggest jump in a year from everybody above her.
Yeah,
in terms of picking things up and changing. So I mean, like and then you're factoring in also like Kat Zingano's a year older, that stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would hell yeah, I'd have her. Yeah,
I agree. If I would be shocked if a year from this time May 4th, a year 2020, she's currently ranked 14. I would be absolutely shocked if she was at 14 or lower. I think she would be half that. I think she'd be top 7, top 6 this time next year.
All right. I agree. I think she's got it. Whatever it is, she's got it. All right, let's move on. Vince Morales defeated Ayman Zahabi by unanimous.
Fight was terrible.
28, 29, 28, 29, 28. What do you think?
Terrible. I didn't want to talk about it. Fight sucked.
Nordim Taleb defeated Kyle Prepolek by unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, 30-27. I like this fight.
Sure.
I like this kid, man. He's fighting a division he's not going to be at home in. He had an opportunity to go in there against a vet who kicks the shit out of everything. I mean, Taleb was in there not screwing around, man. He was really the bright spot of the night for TriStar, which I'll get to later. But, I mean, I liked how this kid kept coming. I like how even though he had a size and speed, like they said it on the broadcast, Taleb had everything over him. And yet the kid stuck in there and he kept coming. I could see in him a future, this kid.
So I feel similar than the Harris fight where Taleb didn't take out this Prepolek kid. He didn't take him out, but he clearly won. I see the toughness you're talking about. I mean, this kid took some damage and didn't quit. What I didn't like is, and this happens when you're a young fighter, I felt like he fought Taleb's fight.
Yeah.
He fought exactly how, if Taleb said, hey, this is how I want the guy to fight me, he did. He stayed on the outside, never really pressed, got inside, made it dirty. And and I felt that sometimes, probably about the first half of the fight, it was like this, it felt like a sparring match, like a light teammate sparring match. And then Taleb kind of turned it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Once Taleb kind of figured out, like, oh, this is how the fight's going to be. Like, he's going to stay in this ring. I don't have to worry about him charging in and making it. Like, the guy probably needed to make it a brawl. Once Taleb kind of figured out that I got this, then he just started. Then he really stepped in on his shots. And you know what this fight reminded him of? Though the style was completely different, how it went. This was a striking match. Last week was a grappling match. It reminded me a lot of Gilbert Burns versus Mike Davis, where you got a prospect. There's some promise there, going against a seasoned, polished veteran who knows where their game is compared to someone who's still involved in their game. And it kind of like too early, too soon matchup. And that's what I thought we had last week with Burns and Davis. You know,
it's interesting. It's interesting the kind of comparison that you use there. The analogy for me that's similar to what you said would be if, when you first start up working at a job and you're the new guy and you don't quite know what you can do yet. It's like they got you taking out the trash and mopping shit, and you're just because you're the new guy, right? I felt a little bit like the kid felt like he had to fight Taleb's fight just because he was new. Like, I'm just happy to be here, guys. This guy wants to stand, fine. He wants to kick, okay,
sure.
Whatever. I just don't. Do I get to stay if we fight his fight? Do I get to stay? All right, that's fine. But you could tell that the talent, he just doesn't know he can fight his own fight yet. It's like, I can do whatever I want. Okay. It's like he finds that out next fight. He fights a completely different fight. But it was interesting that how you kind of were like, he just thought this is the way it goes. All right, let's move on. Matt Sales defeated Kyle Nelson by submission via arm triangle choke. This fight was interesting for me, man. Nelson comes in looking like a superhero, and he just I couldn't quite figure out what I thought about Kyle Nelson. He just seemed like he was all over the place. I felt like he had techniques. He was like the guy in pickup that just plays defense too hard. He's just a little overzealous. Like, I saw the skills there, but it was just too much. And Matt Sales just seemed like he seemed like Donald Cerrone in there. He was just kind of hanging back and like, I always try and like make comparisons. Matt Sales kind of reminded me of like Scott Smith a little bit, like this veteran that just kind of like was picking his shots, and Nelson was just like all over the place, man. I just thought he was gonna like completely flail his way out of the arm triangle at the end. I was like, this guy's got like he was fighting the one technique with a knee bar. He was just all over the place, man. I just couldn't get my head around him. Yeah.
So Sales, I mean, had a great first round, and then Nelson had that second round where he took his back, almost submitted him, almost made this come from behind. And I'm going to say something that might surprise people. I believe the second round being so dominant for Nelson with his ground game cost him the fight. And I'll say why. Because in the third round, he was so desperate, knowing that he has an advantage if he gets to the ground. He was so desperate to get to the ground that he started shooting terrible shots without setting him up. You still have to set up the takedown. You got the takedown because you set it up before. And he said, if I get it down, I win this fight. He abandoned his striking, abandoned his setups, just shot.
And it was a messy takedown and ended it, right? Yeah, that's right.
Messy takedown, which got Sales into the mount. He let up some shots. The guy scrambled, had an arm choke. Fight was over. So I actually think if he was less dominant in the second round, he might have won the fight. If that is crazy.
Makes perfect sense, yeah. All right, moving on. Arjan Boulard defeated Juan Adams by unanimous decision. I had a question for you, which we'll get to in a second. Thinking that Adams was going to win it in the beginning, I wrote the question down, but we could still the same way. I thought he looked good. I thought actually wasn't a bad fight all around. What do you think about it?
I think it was a pretty good fight. I thought it was competitive. I scored it for Bueller, but I know a lot of people scored it for Adams. I think it could have went either way. I thought all three rounds were close. The one thing that Bueller came into the UFC very hot because he was an Olympic wrestler. He's the first Sikh with the Sikh descent. I think they've made the right move by allowing him to wear the turban. I think individualism is good. Kind of have him stand out. Plus, there's a market of people that obviously will be drawn to him, so I think that's good. That said, I have been not that impressed with him. He won this fight, but it wasn't. He dealt with Adam's size, and it's hard to get a grasp on Bueller because no matter who fights Adams, besides the very top guys, it's going to be hard to look good because of how big he is. That said, it came down to takedowns late in the fight. And they talked about, I don't know if you caught this, but they talked about how strict Bueller is with his diet. He actually diets. He's eating vegetables. He's eating lean meats and this and that. And they say Adams eats pizza and tacos, and he laughs about it. And, he has to cut weight just to make the weight class. But then as soon as he's done, tonight he's eating Oreos and tacos and stuff. And
yeah, he already tweeted it, Adams.
Well, that's cool, man, because that eating shit like that is probably why you lost the fight, because when it got down to the grind and defending a takedown, and that little bit of energy left, if you defended the takedown, you might have won your fight. So just because you can make weight, you're still carrying extra weight that's drawing you down. That maybe if you were walking around 265 instead of walking around 285, 290, he's a big guy. He's always going to be big. But you're a professional athlete. Treat your body like that way, and maybe you wouldn't have this loss now.
A couple notes I had from the fight. Before the fight, Boulard had called Adams a TV character, which I thought was not a bad piece of trash talking. Yeah. Adams says he's been working on conditioning. From what I saw of Adams, it looks like he punches with all arms.
Yes.
I see a lot of great technique, kind of off his heels, kind of just swinging him, hoping that his size is going to carry him through. Do you think that maybe, we always talk about camp changes, or is there a potential?
I didn't even know what camp he's in.
Like if he had a little more discipline in his.
Yeah, I didn't even know what camp he's at. Where's he from?
Let's check him out. But that stuck out to me. And the other thing I wanted to throw at you.
Imagine him taking 6 months off and going over to Thailand with Khalil Roundtree and training with Tiger Muay Thai out there. Imagine the work, the improvements he can make by just learning how to properly punch.
So he's fighting out of Houston. It says Paradigm Training Center.
Paradigm, yeah. So if you're in Texas, you might as well go to Fortis. Come on, man. You have the best. Well, in my opinion, I think the best team in the world. And I should. Not team because they're self-producing. It's not American Top Team where the stars come to them. They're self-producing stars. That's why I'm so big on Fortis MMA. But if you want to learn your striking, look what happened to Claire Roundtree. Go to Tiger Muay Thai or jump in with it. There's a lot of good striking coaches. Dwayne Ludwig, as much you want to talk about TJ Dillashaw and all that stuff, but Dwayne Ludwig is a fantastic striking coach.
He seems a little bit like a poor man's Derek Lewis. Like he wants to bust balls and wants to have fun. He doesn't really want to give a shit. But at least Lewis, I don't know if Lewis came to the table with better skills or has a better mindset or whatever, but he just seems like in the places that Adams lacks, sort of Lewis does it.
Yeah, Lewis has some natural power that he doesn't have. I
Right.
think he has a little bit more of a killer instinct than Adams has, and Lewis is actually pretty quick. Like he doesn't get. I don't think he has enough credit for how quick it is. I mean, he throws high kicks like really good.
Yeah, I do see sometimes Lewis throwing fastballs, but I don't know, man. Adams just seems undisciplined as a striker to me, and Lewis doesn't as much.
Yeah.
I think when Lewis gets tired, he gets messy, but when
Sure.
he's at the beginning of the round, he seems like a pretty legit.
Like, would you rather get punched in the face by Derek Lewis at 265 or Juan Adams at 285?
I'd rather get punched in the face by Juan Adams. 100%.
I agree. Me too. I don't want to get punched in the face by either one of those guys, but
Right, but if I had to choose, yeah. I think Juan Adams is knocking me out. Derek Lewis has put me in the.
You might be dead.
Yeah. So my question, well, real quick, we'll get to his call out. In the post fight, Bular called out Andrei Arlovsky. Do you like that fight?
I do. I think it makes it's more. I like ones that make sense. That said, I actually think that's a tougher fight than people think, because Arlovsky loses, but he doesn't really get out grappled, and that's where Bular would have the advantage in the grappling. But he might not have as much advantage as he think. And Bular got submitted by Adam Razorek. And say what you want about Arlovsky, but Arlovsky has. I mean, he won the championship in the UFC by submission over Tim Sylvia. I mean, we're going back, God, almost 15, no, more than 15 years, almost 20 years ago. But
his career, man, is like one of those.
Oh, about 15 years ago. What am I saying? About 15, 16 years ago. Yeah. But was it about 2003-ish?
Here's the other question that originally was going to be about Bular. I guess we can make it about Juan Adams, either or. How does either one of these guys fare against Greg Hardy? They were on the prelims, Keith.
As much as as much as I tell you about people, you can't ignore Greg Hardy's natural athleticism, his natural power. People who just come out and say he sucks is just saying that because they hate him.
Right.
There is ability there. I think Hardy would have an advantage on the feet. In the striking, but the advantage in the wrestling for both of these guys. I mean, you got Juan Adams was an NCAA wrestler, and Bular was a Olympic wrestler. I think Bular would trash Greg Hardy right now, and I'd probably take Adams over Hardy, but it wouldn't have shocked me if Adams got knocked out by Hardy. And I don't think there's many people out there that would say that.
Right.
Most people would say that Adams would trash Hardy.
I think it's an interesting fight. I mean, as we figure out what's next for Hardy, I think Adams would be an interesting fight. All right. Last fight of the night, Cole Smith defeated Mitch Gagnon by unanimous decision, 29-28, 29-28, 30-27. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw a 6-0 prospect going against a guy that was semi-retired, talked about retired, was supposed to be done, having kids. Seemed like a guy that he took a paycheck to me. I mean, he had a late flurry in the third round, but even when he didn't knock out Smith, and Smith got the wrestling going again, he seemed like he just mentally broke. So, I mean, Gagnon was. I don't think we see him again. I think we expect to see a retirement coming soon. All
right, there you have it. Let's move on to trending down.
I think he hasn't won a fight in 5 years. Gagnon.
Yeah.
Gagnon, how he says. Gagnon, the French-Canadian way.
All right, let's move on to trending up, trending down. I had trending up, obviously, Macy Chiasson. She got taken down and held down in the first, but in the second, the fight went to the ground, and then she wrecked shop. Trending down, I had Cub Swanson. It's a close fight with Burgos, and he's lost to 4 studs in a row, but it's still 4. So he's got to figure it out. Who'd you have?
Trending up, Shane Burgos. I mean, he had just picked the biggest win of his career at Presley. And Donald Cerrone. How could you not put Donald Cerrone? I mean, that was a killer fight. Trending down, Marc-Andre Baralt, I would say his name. This is the guy that came in with not a lot of hype from the hardcores, but this guy, he was a multi-division champion. Just one of these guys. If you look at his record, it looked really good, but when you dig deep, he didn't fight anybody. And if you lose to a middleweight like Andrew Sanchez, I think anybody that was high on you has jumped off the hype train.
All right, let's move on to Not For Nothing. I'll start Not For Nothing, but TriStar Gym hasn't been setting the world on fire lately. I think they had 1 win tonight. GSP is out of the game. Rory found Jesus. Might be time to go to the mattresses. Not for nothing, Jaron Vallel may be the most unknown ref in a main event I've seen in a minute. Not for nothing, but Andrew Sanchez, trying to convince the crowd you had a great performance is like trying to convince a girl you're handsome. It's lame and it never works. Just tell them you love them and get yourself some heat. Not for nothing, but Andrew Sanchez never met an uppercut he didn't want to eat. Not for nothing, but Cowboy Cerrone with hair is kind of like Stone Cold Steve Austin with hair. Shit just ain't right. Not for nothing, but there were some high-level MMA minds mixing up in the main event. Cerrone, Iaquinta, Sarah, Longo, and Shilling all have great fight IQ. So usually we go for the funny, but I thought that was as they were processing that fight, I was like, damn, there's some smart guys talking about this fight.
If I do anything in life, I want Matt Serra to hype me up. I want Matt Serra in my corner to like cheer me on.
All right, you're up.
Not for nothing. ESPN Plus. Can we get new commercials so we don't have to see the same Cricket wireless commercial at every single break? Not for nothing. Cole Smith. You can't come out to the Pride song if you've never fought in Pride. Not for nothing. Canadian crowd. If you're going to chant for Zabib, instead of Zabib chant, can you do it more than 3 times? I think they said Zabib, 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 and then they stopped.
That was it.
They gave up. Not for nothing, Zabib. You can't say that you reached the UFC because you can't say that people say you reached the UFC because of your brother, but you had a 6-0 record, and not mention that your opponents had an 11-12 combined record. Not for nothing, Walt Harris. What is up with you saying that you left your team so you could train at the Spartan Fight Center to train with guys on his caliber? He left ATT and is training with Spartan Fight Center, who, as far as I know, the only person on that team of anything to note is Eric Anders, who hasn't won a fight since like Mitch Gagnon did. And my last one, not for nothing, Shane Burgos. If you're gonna shout out your children, don't forget about the second one. Don't say, "Hey, I gotta take this child out. You know, I owe her time." And then go, "Oh yeah, and I gotta take my other child out too." and if you're gonna do that, don't correct Michael Bisping about your UFC records. Like, don't remember your UFC record.
And not your kid.
But not your kid. And, I lied. I got one more. And Donald Cerrone, congrats on the win. But you would, not for nothing, you'll never be the Babe Ruth of the sport. He's like the greatest baseball player icon of all time. Leaves that to John Jones or George St. Pierre or someone like that.
That's true. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say, because this is my, I always take shots at Paul Felder. I tweeted this, but not for nothing, Paul Felder might be the gringo Canelo. They look like they could be like, they got the same dad and different moms.
All right.
All right, let's move on to Shocker of the Night. I had Merab Dvalishvili dominating Rakitonov the way he did. That shocked me. I didn't think he was going to dominate him like that.
My shocker was –
that surprised me.
My shocker was just how good Cerrone was, how bad he outstruck Iaquinta. I was shocked for that.
All right, let's go to From the Notebook, kind of talk that shit. They might both kind of bleed into each other here because there was a lot of stuff said on the broadcast that was interesting to me. So we'll check into both. The first thing was Ultimate Warrior in the building.
Yes.
Oddly next to Harris's family.
Yes. I forgot to write that down. It was going to be one of my I forgot to write it down. I was going to say, not for nothing. If you're dressed like the Ultimate Warrior, you're in Canada. Dress like Bret the Hitman Hart.
There you go, right?
Canada, come on.
And this might actually have qualified as a not for nothing, but Brendan Fitzgerald said, hard to imagine a surefire Hall of Famer who has not been a UFC Hall of Famer. Well, there's Uriah Faber. He's not that hard to imagine. Somebody was talking about, I can't remember who said it.
I'm sorry, say it not.
Brendan Fitzgerald was quoting someone else. I can't remember who he was quoting. But that person said it's hard to imagine a surefire Hall of Famer who has not been a champion. I said it wrong the first time. Who has not been a champion. I said UFC Hall of Famer. Who's not been a champion. And I said, well, there's Uriah Faber. He's not that hard to imagine. And what else did I have? Bisping was funny because a lot tonight he was saying things and then they would either happen the opposite way or like, for example, he said about Zahabi, he goes, maybe wrestling isn't his strong point as Zahabi got a takedown.
Yeah.
Then he said, Bisping said about Chiasson, he goes, maybe she needs to work over to the fence. And then she got a takedown and she's like, now she's on top. So what do I know?
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. He had a good line, which was he said, I might have heard it wrong, but in the Nordine Talib fight with
if it's funny, then you heard it right. Let's just
he
go with
said
that.
something like, I think he won the Battle of the Suntans. I think that's what he said, but I had rewinded it and I still couldn't.
Well, that would fit for Talib. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then as far as did you have anything from the margins?
No, I did not. I am so busy that halftime I'm not listening. I'm tweeting. I'm.
I know. I find myself deciding between the two.
I did a lot of recapping tonight for Cageside Press, so I recapped 4 fights. So that really consumes your work and stuff. So, and I'm always tweeting during the fights.
Right. So a couple other talk that shits was Walt Harris said, I know my hand speed is the fastest in the division. When I let them go, they don't know what's happening. I like that. Cerrone said after the fight, how badass is the poncho this kid's wearing? I thought that was
awesome. That was awesome.
Talking also about making money, and he said, I got to buy this kid a swimming pool, which I'm sure he's well capable of buying him a swimming pool.
Young kid had some cowboy boots on too. I don't want to throw that out there.
That kid goes hard, man. I got to give it to him. If he's, his name's Danger. If ever Donald Cerrone, if you didn't know that was Donald Cerrone's son, you'd probably be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, and then last but not least, before we let you go, and then we'll do Finish Strong. Before we let you go, the really only thing that came out of this was they officially announced DC versus Stipe Miocic 2, UFC 2. UFC is at the Honda Center, Anaheim, California, on August 17th, 2019. So, thoughts? I have some thoughts. What are yours?
Yeah, I mean, as much as Brock Lesnar did not deserve the title fight, I thought Daniel Cormier deserved a chance at Brock Lesnar for that big money fight on his way out the door. So I'm kind of sad to see that happen. Sad to see that not happen, I should say. But I mean, you get two of the best fighters in the world going at it. Yeah, sure, sign me up.
So listen, I'm petty, Keith, or I can be.
Okay.
Something for me feels like Stipe. I mean, he played his cards right.
Yeah.
I almost would have wanted to maybe have him work. I felt like he should have just been like, oh, now you want to make the fight between me and Brock. So I don't know. I mean, listen, the guy wants to get it back. I understand why the second they ran out of options and they came to him, he said yes. Makes perfect sense. But I wasn't as much in the camp that Stipe deserved. I mean, I'm sorry, that DC deserved the fight. I honestly wanted to see the matchup. I didn't think Brock was going to win, but I did want to see some of the grappling because I think Brock's still a capable grappler, not to the extent that DC is.
Sure.
And obviously DC is a much better striker, but I would be interested to see how DC would have went in there. If he went in there to throw hands with Brock, he probably would have got him out of there quick. But if he went in there to grapple with him, it would have been interesting. Because I think John Jones intentionally out-grappled DC in the first fight where he could have maybe just outstruck him and got him out of there. He wanted to prove that he could out-wrestle him. If DC went into a fight with Brock with that kind of mission to be like, I'm going to right all the wrongs of our NCAA career or our history or whatever, or that I was never what Brock was, then I think that he could have that would have made the fight interesting. But if not, it wouldn't have been much of a fight.
The 3 areas I really see DC would have an advantage, like you said, speed and striking. I put that kind of 1. 2 would be the cardio and what's the word I'm looking for? Durability. Like obviously at this point in Dustin's career, I don't think he's very durable anymore. And then the third fight is just fight IQ. I mean, DC is as smart as they come. But one huge advantage that you can't ignore for Brock Lesnar would be the size. I mean, DC is a small heavyweight, and Brock Lesnar is a massive, genetic freak.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Finish Strong. I'm going to use my Finish Strong to talk a little bit about I was born in New Jersey, so I want to talk about that area in terms of where they're at now. I mean, for a while, it was sort of Matt Serra. That was it. Then Chris Weidman came along, and now I think they have Frankie Edgar's been around for a while, but I think with Serra, with Longo, with Renzo Gracie, with Ricardo Almeida, with Mark Henry, they have like a coaching staff and a group of guys in that area that has really produced a lot of great fighters. If you throw Philadelphia's Eddie Alvarez in there, if you throw Philadelphia's Paul Felder in there, there's a lot of great fighting, a lot of great fighters in that area. So I just want to give them a shout out because even though Iaquinta lost on this night, it just sort of showed me how much, and I don't want to take away any of Donald Cerrone's shine. I thought we gave him plenty of it when we went over this fight, but that area really is producing some great fighters in the last 5-10 years. And the best part about that area is I think the future looks good. There's a lot of guys coming up that are going to kind of, carry it along. All right.
That's always a strong wrestling area.
Right.
New York, Long Island, upstate New York, that whole area has always been very, very strong wrestling.
All right, you're up. Put a period on this night.
So I'm gonna go bounce off what we just talked about. UFC, you get these guys that kind of they bleed your heart and soul out there. It's not like football and baseball where they're set for life with these huge contracts. You have guys who bet on the back for you, willing to fight the scariest dudes on the planet whenever you come calling. Daniel Cormier is one of those guys. I thought he deserved a big money fight to end his career with Brock Lesnar. I'm sad that he's not seeing it. But another guy that has always put themselves out for you, probably maybe more than anybody, is Donald Cowboy Cerrone. This is a guy that's willing to fight anybody, anytime, any weight class, short notice. I mean, that's what he's been known for. He's always stepping up, taking the fights that he shouldn't take. And he has the most wins in UFC history. He's get up there in age. He deserves Conor McGregor fight. He deserves it. UFC, do everything in your power to make it happen. Do not book Donald Cerrone against Justin Gaethje, though we'd all love to see that fight. Don't book that yet. Don't book him against Kevin Lee. Don't book him against anybody. Get him the Conor McGregor fight. He deserves it. And one last thing to finish. I'm going to give a quick one. Macy Shillan said something. She said to Canada, he said that they're the nicest people and aren't the great people. I want to double down on what she said. I am married to a Canadian. My wife was born and raised in New Brunswick, Canada. She's the greatest person I know. All my in-laws are up there in New Brunswick, Canada, and they're the best in-laws I can ask for. So I agree. Canadians are great people.
It's funny. I saw this clip the other day with randomly on YouTube with Jim Carrey, and Jim Carrey goes, why Canadians are so nice? Because we don't have to worry about our health care. That's why we're so nice. And I was like, all right. So that I got a kick out of that. So I've been to Canada a couple times when I was in the military. I always had a great time when I was there. So I can vouch for that. I went to Edmonton. Everybody there was nice. And so Canada's a great place. Visit as soon as you can. All right, Keith, tell people what you're working on, where you can be read, where you can be followed, all the whole Keith Shillan profile.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter it's at Keith Keith Shillan Shillan MMA. So at Keith Shillan MMA. What I'm working on right now, I got 2 big articles coming out on Sherdog. I think one's gonna be out Tuesday, one's gonna be out Wednesday. They're gonna go hand in hand with the PFL. It is previewing their season, and by previewing, I'm basically ranking the fighters in each weight class. First one up on Tuesday will be the women's lightweight division, ranked 1 through 8. I've already submitted to the other, so it should be up, I believe, Tuesday. And then the other one is going to be the men's welterweight division. That'll be ranking them 1 through 12. I kind of like the countdown, go from 12 really down to 1. So, if you really want to know about the PFL, I dig deep. I did as much film study I could find these guys. So, if you really like that kind of stuff and you want to watch the PFL and kind of be an expert on the fighters, check it out.
And the PFL starts Thursday, right?
Thursday, yeah. So it comes out right before. And then the next week, so then just so you know, the next week it's going to be featherweight and lightweight I'm going to do. Or not the next week, sorry. 2 weeks because it's 2-week gap. And then light heavyweight and heavyweight will be after that. So I'm watching film on every single person in the PFL.
Sounds fantastic. Listen, guys, trust me, I consume a lot of Keith stuff. You should too. The guy watches as much fighting as anybody. He knows as much about fighting as anybody. For sure, read his stuff, consume everything. Obviously, listen to us, but consume the rest of the stuff as well. And he's part of Sherdog, which is nominated for the media outlet of the year. So I'm sure that.
Yes.
Yeah. So
forgot about that. Vote for us.
Yeah, vote for Sherdog. All right, guys. That does it for this week on the Sunday Morning Cornerman. Listen to all the podcasts on the Cageside Press Podcast Network. I got a few things I'm working on. Performance bonus podcast I'm working on. I've been getting some guys with that. And a new podcast that I'm going to be debuting probably next week. It is done in the PTI style. It is going to be called Early Stoppage. It is with not yet to be announced co-host. So I will be.
Can't even get breaking news.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. I've been texting with the guys. It's going to be a blast. All right, guys, there you have it. Another great episode of Sunday Morning Cornerman. This is the books. Tell your mom, tell your friends, tell your mom's friends, tell your friends of your mom, tell everybody. Peace.